Alrighty. Looks like we are live again. I'm going to start another edition of rubber ducking. We're going to pick up kind of where we left off last time with the next phase in that final project. Have a little less than a week to get it done. So we are going to be picking up from there. And so let's go ahead and I have the final project on my desktop. And we are going to open that in VS Code. Alrighty. Perfect. Right, that's all displaying good. Perfect. So one thing I didn't really do, and it's not recognizing the endpoint. So let's make sure we got the right file here. Hmm. Well, that doesn't seem to like. There it goes. All right, now it's connected to our remote repository. Something I probably should have done last time before we signed off was pushed all our changes up to my remote repo. Because if anything would have happened in between our two streams, unfortunately, none of that would have been backed up. So I got to get in the habit of doing that before I end the stream. And so we are just going to, so in VS Code, if you go over to the little source control panel, we are going to just type a quick message, end of part 1, and just push all those changes or commit all those changes using the check mark, and then we're going to push all those up to the remote repository. So we're kind of starting fresh. I did find a few typos on one of the pages, but other than that, we're at the same spot as where we were before. So if I go to our terminal down below here, something's happened funky with my camera. Give me 1 second. All blurry. There we go. All right. So if we go down to our terminal, we'll go ahead and launch our React app here, npm start. So we're starting up where we were at the end of the last time. If you remember, we kind of had our whole framework out here. We got our nav bar, all of our different components there working. We got a redirect to our home screen. If we typed in some gobbledygook URL, one that doesn't match our paths, we would get the ships not found message. And so now our next step is going to be clicking on the all factions, and then we're going to have another sidebar here that lists all the ships, and then hopefully we'll get to the point where we can add then the ship details after that. So one other thing I wanted to do where I kind of left off last time is this icon in this all factions is kind of small there. So we're going to go ahead and go into the CSS and kind of resize those. So if we go back to our code and go into our index.css, we're going to add a new class here just with the period. That's how you denote a class. And then we're just going to do something like icon dash size. And then we are going to do font size. Then you could use pixels, you could use percentages. I'm actually going to do REMs, which is a percentage of your base font of the website or the browser, I guess. And so in most browsers, that's 16-point font is your base um, measurement. And so you can control your font size of different things kind of based on percentages of the the base font of the website. And so we're going to just start with 1 rem. So that's should, if everything goes according to plan, if what we put this icon size class on, it should really not change. So maybe we should let's just do 1.25. So we're going to increase whatever the basic font size, which is what it was displaying before. We'll then, once we put that on something, it will increase it by 0.25%. So if we go back to our home, no, our app.js, we have our, and it's not gonna like this, let's refresh. So we have our little icon here and then all factions. And so if I want this to be just a little bit bigger. So if we put a class name on this to icon dash size, that should increase that to make it a little bit bigger. And there we go. And that looks okay. Probably not the best way to do this, but I might put a space or two in there. I don't know if it's actually gonna, yeah, it's gonna ignore the white space anyway. So I could put some space on there, a margin and padding, but I think we're just gonna leave it for now because that really doesn't affect our final. It's not something for the final project, which I'm trying to get done, but it might be something I go back and fix a little bit later. The sizing or the spacing between the icon and the words. Okay. So now we need to kind of build our next component. So what it's going to be, we're going to call it ship list, and it's going to be basically another sidebar here, the same size, but it's going to list, hopefully if we get it hooked up to the API correctly, it's going to list all the ships in row, and then we can click, again, the idea then is if we get that up and running and working, we'll click on the ship and then the rest of the page will list all that ship information. So let's start with that. Okay, so we need to make a new component. So under our components, we're going to make a new file and we're going to call it shiplist.js. Okay, and so then we need to use that shortcut again. I'm going to do RAFCE, which is a React arrow function export component. If we click that, it automatically imports React. It names our function to ship list, and then automatically exports it for us. And at least right now, we're not passing in any props to this. Again, we're going to link it in. So right now, our route, if we go to the /all, is just listing the words list of ships. And what we're going to do is put our ship lists in this little area. We're going to put our new component in there. But we have to do some setting up for our component. So again, this is going to be another sidebar like this one. So based on what we're going to click on, which ship we're going to click on, it's going to go to a different path. And so we're going to need the React router again, and we're going to use several elements from it. So we're going to import, and then we're going to kind of do some array destructuring and just pass in elements from React router that we need. So we're going to need the switch. Again, we're going to use route. We're going to use nav, link. I'm going to use route match, which will allow us to match whatever current URL path we're on. So if we're to all, it will pass in this, and then we can add to it. And then we are also going to use the use history, which eventually, which is going to allow us to kind of pass after we do some sort of function, um, or update the view, then it will allow us to pass or say where we want to redirect our screen to. And again, I'm kind of mimicking um, something that we did in class. Um, so from, let's finish this import, React router done. Okay, so there we go. And again, those are highlighting green and being yellow because we haven't used them yet. And then, so in this little area, we're going to use several pieces of that React Bootstrap again, and we don't want to import everything in React Bootstrap. We just want to import some pieces of that. And my camera is still blurry, so let me kind of fix that a little bit more. There we go. Let's hone that in. Okay. I'll leave that open in case we need it again. And so we're going to import some parts from React Bootstrap. So we're going to import nav from React Bootstrap slash nav, and then import button from React Bootstrap slash button. And then this is where we're going to kind of hook in all of the parts. So this is kind of going to be our kind of up top component that's going to pass different pieces of state down to the other components that we need. And so we're going to hook in all of our little, our functions from our service that ties into the API. So we're going to tie into this ship service and then pass in the different functions. So like get ship, create ship, update, and delete ship, so that we have access to those in our ship list. And we're not going to use all of those right now, but we will. This is going to kind of be our hub for everything we need to do. So we need to import. Let's see. Let's do from and see if we can get this hooked up first. Slash services slash, and then it's going to be making sure I'm going up the right path here. So we need to go up one directory, then go to the services directory, and then we need to go ship service. So hopefully that's right. And then we are going to import from there. We're going to get ship. Let's open up two screens here. And then if over here, if we go back to ship service, so we need to do, oh, it's get ships. That would have been tragic there. And then we need create ships or ship, because we're creating one. Update ship if we need to update a ship. And then we need to import our delete ship, all from our ship services. So there's that. So then we'll have access to those in our ship list. And eventually we'll import another component named ship, but that's all we need for now. So I am going to actually go ahead and, oops, not do that, and then come back here and go to ship list. All right, so now looking at my notes here, So we are going to need a way. So once this renders, we are going to need a way to um, basically load in our ships from the API using the get ships. And so we're going to create a function that will load in our ships. It's basically going to run the first time the page renders and never again, unless we call on it. We're going to set it so that it doesn't, and so we're going to have to use the use effect from the React, and then we're also going to need to set those notes to, or the ships to the state. And actually, I'm going to do that first. So we are going to hopefully be pulling, if everything is set up correctly, we're going to be pulling in our ships. CON st const. And though we're going to do an array, and we're going to set this to the state. So we're going to do ships, and then set ships, and then I'm looking at my old, how I set this up in my old previous assignment, and then we're going to use state, use that hook. Oops, I don't know what it did there. Oh, I could have done that and it would set it up for me. Well, that would have been nice. So nice to know that's there. So we're going to do use state, and we're going to set this to an empty array to begin with. Is that right? Ships, use state. Oh, did I not pass in use state? Oh, we need a, yeah, that's, I missed that. So we need to pass in React, and then we need to pass in use state. Gosh, dang it, I didn't want to do that. So we're passing use state as well from React. So then we have access to it. And state, again, is kind of what React uses to hold and update your data and relate that to the view. So we're going to pass in all our ship data from the API. We're going to set that to a variable on the state, and then we have this set ships function that will, as we change data in our ship or ships, um, as that changes, then this function kind of holds that, and that allows us to update data as we go. All right. So we have some place to hold our ship data, and now we need to get that ship data. And again, we only want to load this the first time the page renders, unless we call it again. So we're going to do a function, and we're going to just call this reload ships. And we're going to set that to an asynchronous function, anonymous function, and an arrow. Well, it's an asynchronous anonymous arrow function because we're not passing anything in. And then we're going to say use a constant variable and say fresh ships. So this is what's going to come in. We're going to set the fresh ships to await. So again, this asynchronous function is going to be, it's going to call it, when we call the function, it's going to go, and it's going to go out to an API, and this could take some time. So then we use the await, and so the page will keep going and doing other functions, but then once this returns back with the data, it will continue going. And so then we are going to use that get ships function from our ship service. So we're going to get ships. So we're going to, anytime we call it reload ships, which should be when the page first loads, it's going to go out to our API, pull in all the ships, set it to this constant variable called refresh ships, and then in our state, so in order to get those ships into our state, to track them, we need to use the set ships and then pass that in our fresh ships. So that variable we just called. And then, so I guess if do we want to check, we probably should check if that comes back empty and set it to an empty array. So we're going to use a ternary operator. So it basically says, um, so it's kind of like an if, well, it is an if statement. So, and then this is a truthy statement. So if fresh ships basically has a ship, then we're going to say set it to fresh ships. Fresh ships. If, and then you'd use a colon to do the kind of or. So if ships has something in it, then basically keep it at fresh ships. Otherwise, we need an empty array. So that should catch it if for some reason when we do our reload ships, it comes back as null. And then, so, and this is where we're going to have to use the effect. And we didn't import that in using React either. So we need to import and use effect. Okay. And so this is where we're going to use the effect to set that state after our colon here. Let's see. So then we do use effect and then give it an anonymous arrow function. And then in here, we want to do the reload ships. We're going to call this whole function. And then since the use effect, it allows you to, it's basically telling you when it's going to reload the whole screen. Well, not really, but I guess that's kind of the best way to explain it right now. But if you only want it to run the first time, kind of like on the page load, like we want to do, then that's what we need to do is use we give it an empty array. All right, so we will have a lot of other functions in here too to kind of, once we get to that point, like how we need to pass in our individual ship or update and delete ships. But right now we're just trying to get the page to load with our list of ships. And so we're going to go to our return. And so right now it's that, but since we're going to return multiple lines, we need the parentheses. We're going to do a react fragment, which will allow us to, rather than wrap everything in a div, it will allow us to return multiple normally, again, with a component. When you return that in React, you need one HTML element. So most of the time you wrap that in a div, but if you use React fragment, it allows you to return multiple HTML elements. So, and then, so we're going to kind of copy our, so this is where our second sidebar is going to be. So right now, like I said, it says list of ships, and I haven't refreshed that. Well, you can kind of see it. We might have to play with the spacing, but it will depend on how the second nav bar looks once we get our ships in there. So it's basically going to repeat this whole thing and have another nav bar, but it's going to be a list of ships. So we're going to create another nav bar, but we're going to, so kind of copying the same thing we did last time with some bootstrap classes. So This is going to be a sidebar, and then inner dash sticky, and then let's just go, in case you guys can't see all of this, let's just go to the straight, just the display. All right, so inner sticky, and then we need another div in this. Again, I'm just kind of copying what we did before, but we do have some other CSS classes that we had in our index.css that we can throw in here too. Position, sticky again, and then pt-2. Oh, and I didn't get that pt-3, t-3. So some padding, and then just padding top of 2. Again, those are some bootstrap classes. And then we're going to do another div with a class name equals d-grid. And so then first at the top, we're going to have a button that we're going to use to click and create an additional ship. So that's why up here, we loaded in the button. And so we're going to do button and then variant and not Loki in that case. And we're going to do warning. So that changes it yellow. The button will be yellow. So we're going to give it a class name. So a class again, and margin bottom of 3 will be 3, and float dash end. I always forget the dashes. Float dash end. And then we will eventually have an on click on this to do a function that will create our new ship, but I think that's what we'll do for now. We'll need to put on click on that later. So right now, once we get this button showing up, when we click on it, nothing's going to happen, but then we need a plus and then a new ship. That's what our button is going to say. So it's going to add a new ship. And if I get this all showing up right, I'll probably add a little Star Wars icon there because I like how that's kind of looking back over here, these little Star Wars icons. So we're going to have at the top of our second sidebar, there will be a button, a yellow button that you can click to add the ship. And then again, all the adding and the views will be over there of the ship details. So there's that. And so now we need to actually set up our navigation bar. And so we're going to use that nav that we passed in again from Bootstrap. And our variant this time is going to be the pills, so that once we hover, or the active link that we click on will have a pill, like it will look like a pill. It will be surrounded in blue. We might change the color of that later. Again, those are kind of over and beyond things. If I get this assignment completed, then we'll go back and kind of start prettying it up a little bit more. So then we need a class name equal to flex dash column. All right, so there's our nav, but so here's where we're going to get to the fun JavaScript stuff. So anytime you want to do some JavaScript functionality in your component, use the curly braces. And so what we're going to do is the ships that we pass in and that are going to be on the state, we're going to map through them so that we're passing in an array of ships, which is an array of objects, and with any array, there's built-in high order functions that you can use to kind of iterate through your array. So we're going to use ships. So we're passing in our ships from up here. And then we're going to map those. So, and this will basically iterate. Let's see what it says here. Oh, I think I might actually have to, there we go. So we're passing in a function and then the callback function that, this is way too into it, but basically it's going to repeat. We're going to repeat this nav for each, or not the nav, but each item in the navigation. So each instance, we're going to loop it through for each ship in our array. So we're going to have a ship. And when we do that, then, oops, arrow function. So for each ship in our ships array, we're going to create a nav link. Or a nav item, I guess. So we're going to have a nav item. When using React, each time you're iterating through something, you so that React doesn't get confused, you use a key. So anytime you're repeating something, you need a unique identifier on that using the key word here. And usually that's something unique to each item in the array. So each one of our items, our ships, is going to have an ID provided by CrudCrud, our API. So we're going to do our ship dot underscore ID because that's going to be our key. So again, we have our array of ships. For each ship that we iterate, we're going to pull the ship ID as our key. And then in here, we're going to do our nav link. And then again, we're going to say, since we're using both Bootstrap and router, the router DOM, we're going to use this as, tell Bootstrap to use this as a nav link in the React router DOM. Oh, and here, this is where I sometimes get messed up. We need to do nav.link. So that's the Bootstrap. This is the React router DOM. And then all right, so this is where we're going to have to import some. Did I already import it? Yes. Because we're going to want to route to a specific path, and we're going to have to use the use route match. Because we're going to want to match, as we iterate through these, we're going to have a list of ships that are going to be links themselves. We're going to want to click on them. But we're going to want to match what current URL path we're on. So right now, all. And then we're going to want to, for each ship, we're going to say all slash, and then whatever ID. So our ship ID. When we click on the link, we're going to want to go to whatever path we're on, and then slash ship ID, and then over here, we're going to have slash edit or view, depending on what our ship ID is. So our link it, so as it iterates through, each ship is going to have its own unique URL path. And we're just basically going to append onto the all, and then whatever the unique ID of each of the ship is. So it's a long string of numbers, I think. Random string of numbers, whatever that number means, is going to be the individual ship we are wanting to click on, and that's going to be pull up the ID of the ship we want. So in order to do that, we have to use route match. And so in order to do that, we have to pull in our match, which needs to go above our state. So we're going to create a new constant variable and call it match. So we don't have to type out the use route match each time. And this is a normal convention if you're using route match. and then we're going to say use route. Set that to use route match. So anytime we type route or match, it's going to be referring to our use route match. And so down here in our 2, again, we're going to use some curly braces so we can interpret some Java script, pass things in. So now in order to grab that URL that we're currently at, we have to use some backticks. And then this is the use route match kind of, and then the $ to get our JavaScript variable. And then we're going to say, let's see here. I got to look at how I did this before, or how it was done before. So then we do another curly brace and then match what we just set up with that. Then URL. Again, this comes from that use route match and match. And then we're going to want to do / and then another $. And then we're going to pass in our ship dot underscore ID. So this is the URL. When you click on a link or nav link, that's what it's going to go to. All right. And then, so what are we going to want to display? And I honestly need to look at this. I can't remember what kind of my variable names are. So what do we want to display when we, like what field on the ship do we want to display? I can't remember if it's name or title, to be honest. So we need to go to our endpoint in CrudCrud, and so we want the title to display. I'm sorry I did that fast. So here's our, I just went to CrudCrud, and this is my unique endpoint. This is the resource we've defined as ships. And if we click on that, you can see all the ships. Here's that ID that I've been talking about. So ships._ID. Basically, as we map through, we're going to iterate over all these objects. So each one of these is a unique object. And then this is going to be the ID that's appended to the URL. And what do we want to display? Like what name, what do we want to actually show for the link? Is we want the title. So we're going to use the title. And so in here, we want to, and I guess, yeah, we'll need the curly braces again. We want ship.title. That's what we'll want to display. Then that's the end of our nav link. That's the end of our nav item. And then that should be good there. Oops, too much. That should end our map. And then that should be our nav and our div and our div. So we're kind of closed there. And so then, so that's our nav bar. And then we need again, our second div is going to be our content area. So when we click on a ship, over here is going to display all the ship's information. And so for that, we need to set up our new div, and that's where we're going to put our switches, our switch for our router DOM and our route. So in here, we're going to do a new div, and then class name equals, so we're going to do our main class, and then our inner dash main, and then it's going to be some padding horizontal of 2. So there's our div, and then here's where, just like we did before, on our other component, not there, but for here, we're going to do our switch statements that match the URLs and where to redirect. So we need to do our switch. And then our route. And then so our first route is going to be our path to, well, I guess all we need here is our path to our ships. Okay, I wrote a path. And then we'll need our backticks again and our JavaScript. So we're going to use that. So our path, so we're going to use that use path match, and then we're going to pass in the nodes ID. So in there, nope, so we don't need the $sign there. I copied too much. All we need in here is the match URL. So that's going to grab our URL, and then we're going to pass in again the ship ID. And we need a colon on this. So that's going to be, we're going to match. So if our path, again, this is what switches our view. If our path matches whatever current URL we are in, and then a ship ID, then is where we're going to create a new ship. And we haven't created this component yet, but so we're going to do a ship component that we need to build yet. And let's, for now, we're just going to, because that's going to, if I start building that, it's going to bark and be mad at me. So we'll just type in here is the ship information for now. We'll just put some text there to hold it, some dummy text. And let's just do that for now. Let's see if we can get our routes working and our information. And so then we need a route to catch if we don't have a ship ID, a route. So if the path, or I guess something to show a message in our little area. So when we load this, it's going to have, we're going to click on this, it's going to list our ships, and then it's going to be blank over here. So if we don't have a ship ID and it's just slash this URL, the slash all, we're going to need a message here that says to select a ship to view it. So to do that, we do another route, and then we're going to do a path, and then we're going to pass that the backtick again. Basically, we just want the path dot, oops, not math, path, no, match. And I lost my $sign. $sign match dot URL. And yeah, that's all we want. So if it just matches the URL, we want to display a message. And we have a unique ship ID on the end of our URL. We're going to pass to um, a ship component that we haven't built yet. But for this, we're just going to do a paragraph, and then we'll give it a class name. Use some bootstrap classes here. So so margin of 3, margin top of 5 to add some more space to that. And then we're going to text center for now. We'll see if we like the center text. We may not. And then we'll just type please ship to view, ship to view. Um, Please select the ship to view details. So when we first load that, should just show that. And so that should end our routes, our switches, div, and div fragment. So we have all this. So this should be enough to hopefully, when I reload our screen, it should go out to our API and set our ships to the state, and then iterate through our ships. And yeah, hopefully that should work. We still have all these that we need to define yet. Have we hooked up our ship list though? Let's go back to our app. And so here is where I think we need to put, yeah, let's remember what we're doing here. Yeah, that's going to be think is right here. Yeah, because that's right now it will just say list of ships, and what that's where we want our ship list to be. So, oh, and I'll need to import that. So let's go back to our, this is our app. Yeah, so we'll need to do, let's see. So up here we need to import ship, perfect, ship list from component ship list. So that's our component we just created. And now down here, we need to use that. And let's not, I don't like that. That's perfectly fine, but I don't like that layout. Okay, so let's see. So we can't find our services. All right, so that would be on our ship list. So we want to go to services slash ship service. I just had one too many pass there. Perfect. And not so perfect. So we should be seeing, let's see. First of all, we need to say select a faction to view details. Rats. So we got something messed up here. So let's look at this. Oh, oh no, that's right. So we don't want that to say faction. We want to go back to our ship list. Oh, well, it's working here. We just don't have this working. So let's take this out and just see nothing. All right, so we're not even getting, let's just do get ships, ship service, get ships. Yeah, I guess we need to look at our console. which is not really being nice right now. What is going on here? I'm going to shut this down and start it over. The actual app itself. And that might have been it too, because we're getting our ships only, we're only reloading ships when we use effect, so it should be only the first time that the page loads. So maybe that was our issue. Nope, we still have an issue here. It's not building our array. But let's go to our console. Do we just need to take these out? Let's take these out real quick. And the use history, I doubt that would have anything to do with it. Okay. We're still not getting our ships. We're not getting an error in our console log. Let's go back to CRUD and see. We've definitely hit it. So it might be, but we're not even getting anything here. We're getting this. So our route. Let's just after we reload ships. Well, yeah, we're just not getting this sidebar. So this is where you get to see me do a whole bunch of troubleshooting. What did we do here? Button, warning. Why do we have that there? That I'm not sure on. So I'm not getting that. It's like it's not rendering that middle sidebar even. Oh, it's rendering it underneath. So our sidebar is underneath there. So CSS time. I think I said inner sticky rather than inner sidebar. Inner sticky, inner sidebar. Inner sticky is not a class. It was hiding. So because I had the wrong class, it was lighting over here. But now we can see we moved it correctly over into our middle area. We have our new ship button that does nothing. And then, yeah, so you can see that once we click on a ship or a ship, we get the pill that's blue, that's the pill class. But we don't have any of the new information loading over here. So that's what we're going to have to set up next. But we're at least getting our list of ships next now, which is great. And look at our path up here. We're getting as we click on them, we're getting the unique ID of each ship. So now once we pushed our second sidebar over, we got our correct layout. So far that's all working once we figured out that issue. One single class can throw the whole thing off. So, all right, so let's go ahead. That's kind of a lot of work there. So let's go ahead and push our changes, and our message is going to be in sidebar with inner sidebar ship list. So let's commit that. So that's going to confirm all the changes we just did there, and then we're going to push that up to our remote repository. So now we're going to have to create our ship component. We're also going to need a way to match an individual ship. And I'm looking at my notes here on what I needed to do next. Okay. All right. So I think we're going to move on to, well, first let's import one more. So we got the get ships. We're going to for sure need to get an individual ship. And so if I remember right, that was, oh, we just used get ships there. So how are we going to get an individual ship? We're going to get ship by, we're going to create a new, so we're going to create a new, we're loading in all our ships now. So we're seeing them super nice. Let's refresh this again. Um, yeah, anytime we see this here, I don't want to mess with that, but you can see oh, hold on. Let's go back to so here's what it will look like when the page loads. click on all factions, and then it loads all the ships, every single ship we have in our endpoint, and then it says please select a ship to view. Once we click on a ship, it's going to load that ship information, but we're going to need a way to grab an individual ship, and we do that all by the ID. So when we click on a ship, this is that ship ID underscore ship ID that comes with our object. And so we're going to we need a way to grab that and filter it from the list of ships and then pass that into our ship component so that we get the right ship over here. So we need to create a function to do that. So under here, under our use effects, we're going to create a new function. They're going to be get ship by ID, and that's going to take in a ship ID, and we are going to do some filtering, or I guess finding another higher order. Let's see. I could do this all in one line, but I think I might get a little confused. So we're going to return. So ships. So we're going to pass in we're going to have the whole array. And again, it has to be on this level so that we have access to all the ships. So we're going to return ships.find. That's like our map. It's another higher order function where we're basically passing another function in. So we have our array of ships, and then we're going to do the find method to find the ship we want. So we're going to pass in a ship, or let's just do S, and then we're going to say we're going to find where S dot underscore. So the ship that we're passing in, so as we're iterating in, I could just say ship here. But then that's going to match the ship ID. So I don't want to do that. So to avoid confusion, we're just going to say this one ship we're iterating over at this point, the ship dash dot underscore ID, if that triple equals our ship ID. So this function does is we're going to pass in an ID, and we'll get that from somewhere else. And then it's going to go through all the ships and find the ship that matches. And then it's going to put the information over here eventually once we pass that to where it needs to go. So if we click on Darth Vader's tie, this is the ship ID. It's going to go through the array of all the ships again, and it's going to find the one that matches and then put that ship's information over there. But we also have to pass that into our ship component, which we haven't built yet. So, all right, so let's see. So here is where here's the ship information here. And again, here's that ship ID that we were just talking about. So in here, rather than that, we're going to pass in a ship that we haven't built yet. And so, yeah, and so that's going to break everything right now because we need to go build that component. But on that ship, we are also going to pass in that function we just did, that's get ship by ID. And what are we going to pass in? Get ship. So we're going to pass this in as a parameter to the ship. So the ship component, and let's just finish this. There we go. So in order, since this function is going to be sorting our ships, which are up in this ship list function, we need to pass that functionality, the get ship by ID. If we're going to use it in another component, our ship component, we need to pass that in. And we're going to pass that in by parameter and then by using parameters. So this is what the parameter is going to be named in the component, and this is the function that we're passing in. I mean, the same, but That's how we pass that functionality down to another component. So we better make that component. So we need a new file, and we're going to call this ship.js. And this is where we need to do the RAFCE. Yep, so it created our ship. So we're importing ship from React. And then we are also going to need, because we're depending on what screen we're going to go to, basically this is going to control, the ship component is going to control our um, edit view and our just ship information view. Because of that, we're going to need to use the um, the route, the React router DOM again. So we're going to need to import. We're going to do that object destructuring again and pass in specific parts, not ship. I've been thinking of ships too much. Switch, just like we did on our other components, we're going to pass in the switch, not switch case either. Oh my goodness, this messed everything up. So import switch route redirect, and then our use route match. And we're going to use the params that we passed in. That function is going to be a parameter. So we're going to use params. And we're going to use params. There we go. From React router now. And then eventually, so we're going to pass in two new components to this as well. One for the note view. So when we click on a ship, that just if we want just the information showing there, the route view. And then we're going to also pass in a note form. So when we need to update a form or create a new ship, that's going to come into the ship view as well. So, but the ships, we're going to pass in params. So the only one we have now, we're going to pass in more later, is the get ship by ID. And I shouldn't have saved that yet because we're going to put stuff in this div. And so, all right. So we're going to use, so we're going to new a new constant variable in this ship. And it's going to be the destructuring of the note ID that we passed in. And that's going to be from the params. And I still shouldn't save that because that will reorder that. All right. And then whenever you use the params, it passes that in as a string. And so we need, oops, not the note ID, the ship ID. So we're going to pass in the ship ID from our ships list, get ship by ID for each ship. Okay. From the params, oh, we're not passing in the ship though. So we're passing in get ship ID. Let's see. Let's see. So we have our key, our ship ID. That's okay. we need to pass in our note or our ship? I think we're okay there. Yeah. Well, let's see. So we're going to pass in our ship ID, use params to find that. And then, but if we pass it in by a param, it turns it into a string. So we need to, if we're going to be matching that back up here using a triple equals, so a triple equals matches not only the value, but the type of value that is. So if you have a string that is our ID number and a number, it's not going to match it unless we convert it. So we need to switch this ship. So the ship that we're going to use the ship, and then we're going to get the get ship by ID, and then we're going to parse int. So change that into a number, basically the ship ID. And I still shouldn't have done that because I'm going to do multiple things here. All right. So we still need to use that ship down below. All right. So our div, we need to put some classes on there. So class name equals container and margin top of 3. And then we're going to do some JavaScript again. So we need a big bunch of curly braces here. And so we're going to say if the ship that we pass in, if there is no ship, or if the ID that we pass in is not, so basically the ship ID that we're passing in, or the ship, if that is nothing, we're going to redirect to using the React router down. So we're going to do redirect, and then we're going to say that's to our not found page slash, and then not found. And that's not there. Oh, and we need the quotes around that, the beginning quote. So we're going to redirect to our not found. So again, it's not going to let me, yeah, because we got to finish this up before it will let us do that. But it's going to redirect to our not found component and display that not found message. But if there is a ship, ternary operator again, we're going to do a switch statement. So we are going to do our route, then our path is going to equal, again, we're going to do our curly braces, and then our dollar sign, or no, we need the ticks first, dollar sign. We're going to do the match. Oh, we haven't set up match yet, so we need to do that. So up here, a const. Nope, not that. We need to say match equals use route match. And then now down here, we can just type in match, not that whole string. And then we're going to say the path, if it matches the path, slash. And then if we say slash edit, which again, we're kind of setting up things we haven't quite done yet. So that's going to be the route. So if the path, so we're getting kind of layers deep here. Oh, and I can't show that, but so if it goes to /all /edit or /r ID and then /edit, we want to go to a note form, which again, another component we haven't created yet. So let's just type in note form for now. Because we're going to have to pass in the note ID, the note itself, up on, yeah, yep, yep. We're going to have to pass in several things there. So if we go to /edit, we're going to go to a form. If we are going to go to, if we're going to route, do another route to just the path. So if we pass in just the /all /URL or the ID, we're going to go just to match that path. So if it's just the path, so our URL /all just the ID, then we are going to go to a different note. We're going to go to basically the same thing as the form, but just a view. So we're going to go to note view. And that's just kind of some holding areas for me right now. All right, so that kind of sets up our discussion here. And did it take that away? Yeah, it took away my parentheses. I don't know if I really like that. All right, so it says ship is not defined in ship list because we have not imported it yet. So if we go back to our ship list, let's see, we have to go up to the top and then we need to import that ship. Import ship, oops, capital, from dot slash ship. And now it should be hopefully happy. I don't know if any of this is actually going to work yet. All factions. And it broke. Get ship by ID is not a function. Did we? Okay. There. So let's just pass it all the way through. So get ship ID. Ship. Because we don't have a parentheses at the use of our use params. So it's not getting the ID because we didn't. It's not setting the ID because we didn't have that as a function. So this should, oh, where'd rats. So we're going to close that. Okay. Might be getting to the point where I need to stop anyway for the day. I'd like to get the view at least working, but we'll see. All right, All factions. Loaded in our ships. Got Millennium Falcon. Still broke. All right, so that might be where we need to close for today. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, it's not becoming immediately apparent to me. Let's see. Hmm. This is maybe where I need to stop the live stream because I'll have to troubleshoot that a little bit. Um, it's definitely something to do with. So when we click on our ship, we get to the right URL. Get ship ID is not a function, but it is because we're passing it in via params. Ship get ship by ID. Are we not passing in the ship ID? Hmm. Get ship by ID. Ship ID. Just there. Turn. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to stop there tonight. So we're getting closer. I'm gonna have to do some research on this beyond today. because what we need to do is click on this, and then our ship will determine which view we get, and it's not liking our ID or get ship by ID. So I'm not passing in something correctly, and I need to research that a little bit. So I think that's where I'm going to end the stream today. We'll do part 3 sometime probably pretty soon because I need to keep working on this. And that's what we will do for today. So thanks for watching.